right, so today we're going to take a deep dive into the Jamie Freilley case.
Okay.
We've got a whole bunch of stuff for this. News articles, police reports, and even some forum discussions.
Wow.
This case is pretty wild.
It is.
A 22-year-old vanishes in 2008, and then a few months later, the prime suspect ends up dead in a trunk.
Yeah, it's got more twists and turns than a back road in the Appalachians.
That's one way to put it.
Yeah.
And that's why we're here.
Right.
Trying to make sense of this whole thing and what happened to Jamie.
Absolutely.
So for those who might not know about this case, let's start from the beginning. Jamie Freilley was a young woman from Gastonia, North Carolina, and she went missing on April 9th, 2008.
Yeah, and from what I've read in these sources, she really seemed like a very kind and trusting person.
Yeah.
She wanted to be a drug counselor. She really had this desire to help people.
Yeah, and the compassion might actually be a key part of this whole mystery. In the days before she disappeared, Jamie had been feeling sick. She actually went to the hospital twice, complaining of stomach pains.
Oh, okay.
But she left a second time without actually seeing a doctor.
Why?
The wait was just too long.
Ah, I see.
And this is where things get really interesting. Early the next morning, Jamie called a friend and said she was getting a ride to the hospital in a truck, and that was the last anyone heard from her.
Wow, so what did her apartment look like?
Yeah, was there a sign of a struggle?
Right.
Or forced entry?
Well, actually, it was the opposite. Her apartment was in order.
Really?
Yeah, her keys and purse were inside, but her phone and shoelaces from her favorite sneakers were missing.
Shoelaces? That's a weird detail.
I know, it's really strange.
What could that even mean? Well, it's hard to say for sure,
right.
But
yeah.
It could have been an attempt to stage the scene, make it look like she left willingly.
Okay.
Or, this is a little more creepy. It could have been a way for someone to, exert control, leave behind a disturbing calling card.
Almost like a signature. Right, like they wanted to personalize the crime.
Yeah, and speaking of perpetrators, this is where Jamie's future father-in-law, Rick Sr., kind of enters the picture.
Right, he told police that he dropped Jamie off at the hospital for that second visit.
Mm-hmm.
But then phone records show that Amy called him several times that night.
So what did he say about those calls?
He claims that he told her to just stay home and rest.
Mm-hmm.
But that last call, the one where she mentions the truck, seems to contradict his alibi.
Oh, how so?
Well, Rick Sr. drove a white panel van, and some people referred to it as a truck.
Okay.
So that detail puts him in contact with Jamie, or at least at the scene right before she vanished.
Yeah, that's suspicious.
Very.
And he wasn't exactly a stranger to trouble, was he?
No, not at all.
He had a history of violence against women.
That's right. Back in 1986, he served time for strangling his ex-girlfriend to death.
Wow.
And even more recently, his ex-girlfriend at the time of Jamie's disappearance had a restraining order against him.
Really?
Yeah, she said he was very manipulative and controlling.
So we got Jamie, who wants to help people, and then we have Rick Sr., who has this pattern of harming women. Do we know anything about their relationship?
It seems like Jamie was actually trying to help him with addiction issues.
Oh, wow.
She had this innate desire to see the good in people, and perhaps she saw him as someone that she could help redeem himself.
That's really interesting. So is it possible that James' compassion for Rick Sr. could have blinded her to the potential danger he posed?
It's definitely a possibility and one worth considering.
Yeah, it's scary to think about.
It is.
Now, before we get into the circumstances of Rick Sr.'s death, let's talk about what happened right after Jamie disappeared. What were some of the initial leads the police were following?
Well, a couple of days after Jamie went missing, a utility worker found her phone miles away, just tossed by the side of the road.
Really?
Yeah, unfortunately, they couldn't get any usable prints.
Mm-hmm.
But the way it was damaged, it suggested that it was thrown from a moving car.
So they had the phone, but no... Jamie, what about her boyfriend, Ricky Jr.? He was in prison when she disappeared, but he was released shortly after.
Yes, Ricky Jr. was incarcerated at the time, but when he got out, he was very active in the search for Jamie.
Okay.
He even moved in with her mother for a while.
And what was his relationship like with his father, Rick Sr.?
It seems like it was pretty strained.
Okay.
Ricky Jr. and James' mother actually recorded phone calls with Rick Sr.
Wow.
Hoping to get him to confess to something.
That's a bold move.
It is.
Did they get anything from those recordings?
Well, in one of the calls, Rick Sr. makes this really cryptic remark to James' mother.
What did he say?
He implies that someone might have taken Jamie and that they don't want to give her back.
That's a strange thing to say, especially for someone who claims to have no idea what happened.
Right. It almost sounds like he's hinting at something, almost like a veiled threat.
Yeah, so we have a missing woman, a suspicious future father-in-law, and a cryptic phone call. And then just when you think things couldn't get any more complicated, Rick Sr. turns up dead.
And the circumstances surrounding his death are, let's just say, unusual.
That's putting it mildly.
Yeah.
So how did Rick Sr. die? And why does his death add yet another layer of complexity to James' case?
Well, this is where we really start to see the puzzle pieces intertwine, but we'll get into that in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay. All right. So we left off with Rick Sr.'s pretty strange death.
Yeah.
Can you remind us how he died and why it's so important to this case?
Well, Rick Sr. was found dead in the trunk of his ex-girlfriend's car.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The official cause of death was ruled an accident.
Okay.
Due to a combination of drugs and alcohol and the extreme heat.
Okay.
But the circumstances are so bizarre that a lot of people, including his own family, believe there's more to the story.
It's definitely not your everyday death.
No, it's not.
So what do we know about his relationship with this ex-girlfriend?
It was a volatile relationship, to say the least.
Okay.
She had a restraining order against him, and she said that he was abusive and controlling. In fact, the day that he died, he had actually broken into her car and stolen her purse.
So he was already in trouble with the law.
Yeah.
Was this connected to James' case at all?
It's hard to say for sure. But it just kind of speaks to this pattern of escalating conflict, especially with women.
Yeah.
The police theorized that he might have been planning to ambush his ex-girlfriend using that emergency release handle in the trunk.
Right.
But something went wrong.
Oh, wow.
And he ended up trapped.
That's scary.
It is.
I wonder if this aggression towards women, could this be connected to his past?
It's certainly a possibility.
Right.
Remember, he served time for strangling another ex-girlfriend back in the 80s. So it's a disturbing pattern.
It is, and the timing is so suspicious.
I know.
It happened just as the police were starting to zero in on him as a suspect in James' disappearance.
It almost feels like he took whatever secrets he had about Jamie to the grave.
Yeah, it does.
However, even with Rick Sr. gone, James' family never gave up.
That's great.
Her mother, Kim, has been relentless in her search for the truth.
That's incredible. What kind of things has she done to try to find out what happened?
Well, she launched her own investigation.
Wow.
Collaborating with a retired detective.
Really?
And she even joined forces with the family of another missing woman from the area.
Wow.
They've really pursued every lead, no matter how small.
That's great.
There was even a time when a photo of a woman who looked a lot like James surfaced on an escort website.
Oh, wow.
But it turned out to be a false lead.
Oh, that must have been so hard for them.
It must have been.
Just, a glimmer of hope.
Right. And then just dashed again and again.
That's got to be one of the worst parts of these cases.
It really highlights the importance of, keeping the story alive and never giving up hope and just continuing to push for answers, even when it seems like the official investigation has stalled.
Yeah, for sure.
And in James' case, there was another twist that brought a mix of hope and despair for the family.
Okay.
A man named Jerry Case confessed to her murder in 2015.
Wait, I thought you said Jamie's boyfriend, Ricky Jr., was in prison when she disappeared.
He was.
Who's this Jerry Case?
Jerry Case was a convicted killer who, while in prison, claimed to have killed Jamie and another missing woman from the area.
Wow.
He was already serving time for other violent crimes. During the time frame of Jamie's disappearance.
Right.
So it raised a lot of eyebrows.
Yeah. Did the police take his confession seriously?
They did investigate it.
Okay.
But the DA ultimately dismissed his confessions due to a lack of evidence.
Yeah.
It was suggested that Case might have been seeking notoriety.
Okay.
Or trying to manipulate the system.
Right.
False confessions, while they're rare.
Yeah.
They do occur. And sometimes individuals with a history of violence make these claims.
Okay.
For a variety of reasons.
This is another dead end, sadly.
Yeah.
But even with all these twists and turns, the investigation into Jaime's disappearance continued.
It did.
And just this past February, there was like a potential break in the case.
Yes.
Human remains were discovered near a creek in Gastonia.
That's right.
That's huge. Do they know if it's Jaime?
Not yet.
Okay.
Identifying the remains can take up to a year.
Oh, wow.
So Jaime's family is left in this, agonizing limbo.
Yeah.
Just waiting and hoping for answers.
As we've been talking about all this, I keep going back to the fact that Jaime had this strong desire to help others, especially those struggling with addiction.
Right.
We haven't really talked about the friend she was trying to help get into rehab before she vanished.
That's true. We know very little about this individual, only that it was someone Jamie cared about and was trying to help.
And what if that's the key to this whole thing?
What do you mean?
What if this friend, someone Jamie trusted, completely betrayed that trust and exploited her desire to help?
That's a chilling thought, but definitely a possibility.
It would make sense. Someone who knew Jamie well enough to understand her routines and her desire to go above and beyond for others.
Right.
They could have easily manipulated her.
And it aligns with the idea that her trusting nature might have been a factor in her disappearance.
Yeah.
If Jamie believed that she was helping someone, she might have been more willing to get in a car with them or go somewhere with them without really questioning their intentions.
It's a tragic reminder that sometimes the people we trust the most are the ones who hurt us the most.
It really is, and also speaks to just the complexity of these missing person cases.
Yeah.
Sometimes the most obvious suspects aren't always the guilty parties.
Right.
We need to look beyond the surface and consider all the angles and all the possible motives.
Absolutely.
Huh.
So what can we learn from Jamie's case, especially for those who might be new to true crime?
Well, I think Jamie's case is a reminder that these cases aren't just stories.
Yep.
These are real lives.
Yeah.
Filled with heartbreak and unanswered questions.
Yeah.
It also emphasizes the importance of vigilance.
Yeah.
Even when years have passed and leads have gone cold, someone out there might hold the key to unlocking the truth.
Yeah.
A seemingly insignificant detail that could crack the case wide open.
And that's why it's so important for anyone with any information about Jamie's disappearance, no matter how small or seemingly irrelevant, to come forward.
You never know what piece of the puzzle might be the missing link that helps solve this case and bring Jamie home.
The Gaston County Police Department can be reached at 704-866-3320, and Crime Stoppers can be contacted at 704-861-8000.
Right. Any information, no matter how small, could make all the difference.
So as we continue to kind of unravel these mysteries surrounding Jamie's disappearance, let's remember that this is more than just a case.
Right.
This is a story about a young woman who had dreams and ambitions.
Yeah.
A woman who touched the lives of those around her.
Absolutely.
And while the answers may seem elusive, the pursuit of truth and justice must continue. It is really incredible how one seemingly small detail, Jamie trying to help a friend with addiction, can potentially shift the focus of this entire investigation.
It really shows that we need to be so careful about jumping to conclusions. The most obvious suspect in this case, Rick Sr., might not always be the perpetrator.
So if we're looking at, the idea that someone Jamie trusted might have been involved, who are we looking at here?
Well, we have very little information about this friend that Jamie was trying to help.
Right.
But it's possible that this individual, was struggling with their own demons and might have taken advantage of Jamie's kindness.
What would the motive be in that kind of situation?
Well, it's hard to speculate without more information.
Sure.
But, maybe this friend was desperate for money or drugs, or maybe they were trying to cover up something else entirely.
Right. We've seen so many cases where people manipulate and exploit others for all sorts of reasons.
Exactly.
And if Jamie truly believed she was helping someone in need, she might have overlooked some red flags or ignored her own intuition.
Absolutely. Someone who knew Jamie well would have known exactly how to manipulate her good intentions.
Right.
They could have easily just fabricated a story to elicit her sympathy and get her alone.
That's kind of a scary thought.
It is.
But it does make sense considering the strange circumstances surrounding her disappearance.
Right.
No signs of a struggle.
Right.
Her apartment seemingly staged to look like she left willingly.
It's all very calculated.
Yeah.
It points to a level of premeditation. And, if this friend was struggling with addiction, they might have been capable of acts they wouldn't normally commit.
Right. Addiction can make people do desperate things.
Absolutely.
It's just a tragic reminder that sometimes the people we trust the most can be the ones that hurt us the most.
It's very true.
So where does this leave us? What are the next steps in Jamie's case?
It's clear that the investigation needs to kind of broaden its scope. We need to learn more about this friend.
Yeah.
Who were they?
Right.
What was their relationship like? Were there any instances of manipulation or controlling behavior in the past?
It's like we're adding another branch
to
this already complicated tree.
Exactly.
And hopefully exploring this new avenue might lead to some answers.
It could, and it reinforces the importance of public awareness.
Yeah.
Someone out there might know something about this friend.
Right.
Even just a small detail that could be crucial.
You never know what seemingly insignificant piece of information could be the missing piece of the puzzle.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important for anyone with any information, no matter how small, to come forward.
If you have any information about Jamie Freilley's disappearance, please contact the Gaston County Police Department at 704-866-330, or you can anonymously contact Crime Stoppers at 704-861-870.
Even if you think what you know isn't relevant, it's always better to let the authorities decide that one small detail could be the key to bringing Jamie home.
Jane's case is just a heartbreaking reminder that these unsolved mysteries are more than just stories.
Yeah.
These are real lives.
Absolutely, yeah.
Filled with unanswered questions.
Right.
And for families like James,
yeah,
the search for answers never ends.
But even in the face of tragedy, there's always hope. Yeah. Hope that someone will come forward with information. Hope that new technology will uncover new evidence. Hope that one day James' family will finally get the answers they deserve.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Jamie Freilley's case, let's remember her spirit,
absolutely,
her kindness, and her unwavering desire to help others. Let's keep her story alive in the hopes that one day justice will be served.